the three members of this group we work in the library, and we decided to spend this time to develop an assignment. And it's really supposed to be aimed at effective learning. 115, we get these classes that come in, and they need just a 1-hour instruction session. That and in the past, it's been we've like tried to fit everything but the kitchen sink. You know, like here's the library, here's all we can do for you. Here's the catalog, here's the databases, here's how to evaluate web source. Blah, 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 blah. Has it been 50 minutes yet? Blah, 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 blah. It pretty much violates every tenet of instruction, you know, but basically that's all we get. So we've decided to embark upon a campaign of convincing people to try to narrow it down to just 1 or 2 things that we can actually help with for their classes. So one of the things we decided that the effective learning classes most wanted, and this was when we were consulting with some of the effective learning teachers and the lead, was that they really thought that the students, in order to be effective learners and in order to go on successfully to do well in their other classes, they needed to learn to think more critically about websites that they encountered during the course of their research. So that was one of the goals of this session. Now, any session that we design pretty much is going to have to take place in either 50 minutes or 80 minutes, however long the class is. It's in rare situations, a teacher will bring back their class for further instruction, but we decided just to focus on a 50-minute session for this. So the content of the class is basically questions that they should be asking when they encounter a website before they decide to incorporate it into a research for a class or for a research paper or whatnot. And these included authority, who wrote the site, are they an expert, do they have qualifications, currency, how old is it, the purpose, is it written to appeal to children or to scholars or to sell things or to be informational, to communicate with other scientists? What's the purpose? And of course, point of view is a big one, whether there's some bias there. One thing that we felt like we absolutely had to go over a little bit, just so that they could manipulate the website to figure out what was really going on, is to know about the parts of a website. So what is a URL? What is a web address? What are its constituent parts? What you can do when you truncate the URL, chop pieces of it off to find out where it's actually coming from so that you can get to the home page of the website, the actual home page. So hopefully you can find an About Us link or something of that nature. Another technique is to, if you find an author's name or the name of the organization, you run a separate search in Google for that name to see what other people are saying about them, hopefully. So in order to actually convey all of this content, we decided that it would be best for the instructor to model just using one site. Now, we had a lot of discussion about whether we should open it up and actually teach them how to search the web, like using more advanced techniques, like advanced search in Google, or like do an actual live search using the interests of the students. But we regretfully decided that given that we only have 50 minutes, that basically there's just absolutely no time to do that. So what we decided is that we would choose a topic that's kind of contentious but not too contentious, like video game violence, whether there's an association, people are going to be more likely to commit violent acts as a result of heavy video game use. Yes, that's contentious, but it's not as contentious as, say, abortion or something like that. So the instructor models going through all of the techniques that you would do according to a checklist or maybe a questionnaire sheet following along, and then divides the class into 3 or 6 groups depending on how big the groups are. The reason 3 or 6, divisible by 3 because there'll be 3 websites that they're encountering. And we would choose the websites according to what the larger purpose of the class is. It could be that the teacher has some content in effective learning that they specifically want to be covered as well or tied into it.
Or it could be used, I'm part of the group too, could be used for other classes that are more content-based, so we can tie this assignment into more, maybe a biology class or a health sciences class.
There's separate classes that are effective learning for health students, so this would be an ideal time to do a contentious issue in health or a treatment or something like that. So you can choose sites based on a variety of factors. You named some before. She's done this kind of, one you chose was a scientific way above the heads of the students.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
so,
Scholarly sources that the students wouldn't understand. They wouldn't recognize the value of them because they didn't have the framework in that discipline to know who the authors were, what they were saying even.
yeah. There's others. So you would just choose the sites for them based on what you're trying to do specifically. And then after each independent group has gone through the site according to the sheet you've given them and what you've modeled, then they would each choose somebody to represent them in front of the class and present their findings. And then there would be a class discussion of the sites in general and what they would be good for or not good for. If you wanted to make it just really clear and dry, you could, have one site that's complete bunk but usually they're not confronted with that. Usually they're confronted with things that are a little bit more tricky than that. So the last thing is we decided that the 4 main issues that came up during this were inquisitiveness, like having an open mind with what they're confronted with on the web, not automatically dismissing it because of this or accepting it because of that. Lifelong learning, obviously, we would hope that the skills that they learn here, that they would cross-apply them to things. They search the web all the time. Information literacy, which
Dear to your heart.
And then this reading is something that I think people underestimate. The difficulty of not only reading through these sites, and the way we do it quickly, and we evaluate quickly, not what we're looking for, and we move on. But for when they're beginners, they need to take some time so that they can read between the lines. If they're faced with a website that is sponsored by an industry front group, it might use specialized language that really is a tip-off, but they're not recognizing it as a tip-off. So it requires a certain kind of reading that really is specific to this kind of research. Wow.
You rule!
Librarians.